When you think of the number 100, what comes to mind first? Is it a particular show or anime, since I've probably primed anime in your brain? Or maybe you didn't even consider anime, and instead you were thinking about a sport or a more off-the-wall idea, like that one super awesome game in the 360 era called 1 vs 100, that's tragically never made a return, and this knowledge leaves you deeply hurt and without purpose. Well, right now for me, 100 is very important, because we've now hit 100 subscribers and counting on the channel, and I wanted to celebrate with today's video. The idea is fairly simple. I'm going to give you 100 things that I love about anime. I'll include things like specific shows that mean a lot to me, characters that I have an appreciation for, and even some abstract things like themes or moments from anime that have been impactful to me. Oh, and ignore the ordering, it's really just a necessity so that you and I can keep track of where we are on the list. So without further ado, let's begin. Starting with Toradora because it was the anime that got me into anime, and it helped kickstart my love for the rom-com genre. The Toradora Christmas episode for giving my first taste of the raw emotional range that anime can reach. ReZero for making me love a series in a genre that I don't normally enjoy. And of course I can't overlook how funny the sound effect is to me now. Also having the blessing and curse of finding the all-time best girl Rim so early in my anime life that it makes it difficult for competing waifus to measure up. My dress-up darling secretly being a top 10 all-time sleeper hit for me even outside the rom-com genre. If Season 2 slaps as hard as Season 1, it could climb even higher. And on top of the dress-up greatness, we have the introduction of the new age best waifu. Marin Kitagawa is the best of best girls. This show also made me realize my love of the fireworks trope in romance anime. It's literally in almost all of them, and I frankly adore it anyway. Vinland Saga, if I may say, has some of the best character writing in fiction history, bringing to us a few of the best characters to grace the screen. Askeladd being one such character, his wry smile hiding more than may first appear. This man is the epitome of a bad guy that you can't help but love. Then we have Thorfinn, who gave us one of the most quoted moments in recent anime in I Have No Enemies. Pokemon for planting the seed that would one day become my love for anime, and of course for giving me some of my best childhood memories along the way. For instance, it taught me that I could use a frying pan as a drying pan. And finally, after spending the last 50 years at the age of 10, my boy Ash finally got the dub. If Pokemon planted the seed, then Dragon Ball Z watered and nurtured that seed all the way up to the modern day. The Super Saiyan transformation was a life-changing event for many people besides myself, I'm sure, but it felt criminal for a fanboy like me to not include it here. My favorite all-time scene in Dragon Ball Z is Vegeta's conversation with Piccolo before his final atonement. A once vicious and uncaring character finally comes full circle in the end. Hunter x Hunter subverted my expectations for how a shonen should play out. In doing so, it created some of my favorite anime arcs to date. One such arc is the Chimera Ant arc. Though many would disagree, I loved the added narration in the battles, and I appreciated how they handled Meruem in a way outside the norm for a battle shonen. And I will laugh every single time I see this one little snippet of Hisoka without fail. Naruto and Shippuden confirmed for me that even the old titans can still draw a new audience. And a true moment of hype for a villain can be very rewarding when done right. For instance, this world shall know pain. If I loved Thorfinn for having no enemies, I've gotta love Madara for having all the enemies. And when Naruto talks to Iruka towards the end of the series, man, that moment hit me harder than Truck-kun in an isekai ever could. Made in Abyss taught me that looks can be very deceiving, with the world being so alive and full of wonder, and yet so tragic and hard to navigate. And to truly bring this world to life, Made in Abyss has one of the most gorgeous soundtracks you will find in media period. 86 for showing me that even in genres I'm not typically interested, there are some standout hits. The feels of this finale are almost unrivaled. Everything from the music to the backgrounds really paints a beautiful narrative that I likely won't ever forget. And Lena saved the cat. That's it. That's all I had to say for this to make the list. Sword Art Online. But not for the anime necessarily, more for the light novels. The concept of the story was so cool for me at the time. Death Note, up until a certain episode, for being a thrilling duel of the minds that never got boring. And who could possibly forget one of the most memeable moments of all time in I'll take a potato chip and eat it? Speaking of shows that I loved up to a certain percentage, Erased was nearly perfect for a good portion of its run. Some will certainly appreciate the end more than myself, but I can't hate on the opening song for even a second. Certified slapper. Attack on Titan proved to me that a show actually can live up to the insane hype it receives. Despite some ending-related concerns, it truly is a masterpiece of storytelling. And I just really have so much fun saying Eren Yeager. The reaction on people's faces when you say Attack on Titan is a mecha is also priceless. Give it a try, trust me, it's a great time. Bocchi the Rock gave me some of my most genuine laughs the show has ever given me. The writers were on top of their game in this one. And I almost made this part of the last point, but the animators really deserve their own spot on this list for their work in this show. My Hero Academia made a non-Marvel or DC fan interested in the superhero concept, something that I never thought would occur. And it just so happened to feature one of my favorite fights of all time in All Might vs. All for One. One Punch Man took the superhero trope and turned it inside out in a hilarious way that I'll always enjoy. And when it takes itself seriously, it can hit pretty hard as well. Moomin Rider really gave it his all against the Sea King, and I'll admit it, I got a bit emotional watching that moment unfold. One Piece somehow got me to commit to a now 1,000 plus episode series, and I regret nothing. Luffy vs. Usopp was so unexpected for me that I couldn't believe my eyes when it happened. Water 7 really just hit so different. A concept nowhere near exclusive to One Piece, but I just love when somebody goes sicko mode to such an extent that everything turns into squares. Beautiful. B-A-utiful. Chainsaw Man had such a spark of brilliance by having a different ending song every episode. I almost looked forward to those more than the actual episodes, and that was saying quite a lot. Jujutsu Kaisen got me so hyped that I read the manga to catch up, and now I feel slightly empty on the inside, but it was worth the pain. There were so many notable fight scenes in JJK Season 1, but Nobara went absolutely crazy in that final episode of Season 1. And my boy Gojo. Listen, even as a current manga reader, my dude is still the GOAT. I don't care what anyone says. Ranking of Kings is criminally underrated and boasts some of the most interesting characters in anime. Queen Hilling being the absolute top of the list, and don't you dare say otherwise about my queen. Speaking of queens, Rukia is best girl, and I will not explain myself further. I should really also catch up on Bleach though. A silent voice is one of those experiences where you just sit there after watching it and reflect on your life up to that point. Every single person, even non-anime fans, should watch this movie. Another movie that had a huge impact on me was Your Name. Several scenes in this movie will have you yelling at the screen in anticipation, and it's amazing. Continuing along the life-changing lines, Your Lie in April tackles similarly difficult subjects in a beautiful way that will likely have a long-lasting impact on you. Weathering with You is an example of raw beauty in animation. I may be biased because rain is my favorite type of weather, but this movie is on another level of pretty for a gloomy day lover. And because I can't justify having half of my list being dedicated to one studio, I have to give a spot to all of the Studio Ghibli movies as a whole. So many all-time classics all under one umbrella. The fact that I absolutely cannot resist the call to the void that is the Rent-A-Girlfriend manga. Like seriously, I can't stop reading it. Steins Gate completely destroyed my brain, and at times my heart as well, but it was a fun roller coaster ride that I'd happily watch again to catch all the foreshadowing. To Your Eternity really couldn't even wait one full episode without hitting you in the feels. And it really never seemed to stop either. Honestly, rude. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood was the first 50-plus episode series I tackled, and I'd venture to say that that was a good choice in hindsight. Roy Mustang is a menace, and I'm here for it every single time. Watching him absolutely obliterate people never lost its appeal. The Devil is a Part-Timer's humor struck all the right chords as someone who's worked in a job like that in the past. Blue Lock is fun on its own, but the eyes, man, just look at these things. I'm convinced at least 50% of the budget went to the eyes. And Haikyuu has some of the most hype moments in anime even outside of the sports genre. But also those openings, bro. Fly High goes so hard that even I want to join the team. Violet Evergarden had no right to be this absolutely stunning. Kyoto Animation really knocked this one out of the park, and of course, the story is almost perfect on its own. And every episode hit a different emotional beat, but the episode with Violet going over the lake was truly special to me. Oshinoko came out of nowhere for me, and I was so happy when I watched it. That first episode was one of the best introductions to a series I've ever seen. And the characters and their reactions to different stimuli felt so real and kept me invested for the entire run. Angel Beats was a fun watch certainly, but the opening song will never cease to be an absolute banger. Spy Family was such a wholesome good time that I can't help but smile while watching it. And let's not forget Anya being the absolute embodiment of eleganto. I also really appreciated how Buddy Daddies was able to take a somewhat similar premise to Spy Family and make a completely different show with just as much value and uniqueness. Summertime Render gave me a feeling that I hadn't felt since watching ReZero for the first time, and I absolutely adored it. And the last few notes of the opening theme mixed with the animation is so catchy that I looped that segment over and over and over again for a while. Tower of God fans bonding over the fact that Rachel may just be one of the worst human beings in anime form ever made. Everything about God of High School except for the anime's Omega Rush plot, but that's a topic for another time. The Promised Neverland Season 1 and Season 1 only, we don't talk about Season 2. Don't Toy With Me Miss Nagatoro is cute and funny, and as an added plus, the characters actually show some development, which is always welcome in romance anime. But also, we have this. Senpai. Poison! Senpai da! Poison hakken! Senpai desu ne. Hell's Paradise because what is happening? Heavenly Delusions because what is even happening? Tomo-chan is a girl actually giving a satisfying romance story in one season was a breath of fresh air. And Wotakoi was an even bigger breath of fresh air because it's an actual adult romance where we didn't have to wait 435 episodes for them to get together. It also helps that the show is hilarious. Citrus was a unique watch with one of my favorite voice actress performances I've heard. There are some weird scenes, but in some ways it feels more real from the discomfort. Odd Taxi was a show that I didn't expect to like as much as I did. It really subverted my expectations at every turn. Every time I thought I had something figured out, the plot went beyond where my imagination envisioned it going. Call of the Night caught me off guard with its stunning aesthetic. You could almost get away with purely watching the show for when they go outside. Demon Slayer just continues to be a peak example of a studio going above and beyond when it comes to a quality production. It's absurd how every season seems to have a crazier moment of hype than the last. But even having said that, it's really tough to ever eclipse Tengen and Friends vs. Gyutaro. In the dictionary next to the word hype, you'd probably find this scene. But don't fact check me on that. The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten very nearly ended my existence from the sheer intake of sweetness. And on the note of intake and sweetness, why does the food in anime always look so good? I'm not complaining, but it's always been strange to me. It almost feels like a cry for help. Feed the animators, man. And it wouldn't truly be an anime list if I didn't mention the concept of the power of friendship. Friends for the win. My love story with Yamada-kun at level 999 just really reinforced my weakness for blondes. Look at Akane. She's just peak cute, and that's all there is to it. If you've reached this point and couldn't tell from the list so far, I've just got to add the romance and romance comedy genres as a whole. And while we're on the topic of my top few categories, I suppose I must also include shonen. What started as my childhood favorite has remained one of my favorites to this day. Any series where the main antagonist is defeated by someone other than the main character. I really think more series should take this approach, even if it's just for one arc in a longer show. I genuinely love how anime brings people together, and we're presently in a golden age of anime with hopefully no end in sight. The future is bright, anime lovers. Speaking of no end in sight, my plan to watch list on my anime list is absolutely absurd. I feel as though it's just not possible to watch everything I want to, and honestly, I view that as a massive win. Watching or reading week to week might be a test of patience for some, but for me there's almost nothing more entertaining than the hype and discussion that can come from episodic build-up. It lets you connect with the viewers as well as the show itself. Anime's unique ability to connect with me on a personal level is unrivaled in media. The environments, the characters, the stories, I just really can't get enough. And for me, the show that connected to me most of all was Sing Yesterday for me. Your mileage may vary, but this show will forever hold a very special place in my heart as the anime that made me fall in love with anime. I said this list wasn't necessarily in order, but I wanted to save the best for last. You all. If it weren't for you guys' support so far, I probably would have already moved on after my first love letter to anime. So thank you all from the bottom of my heart. This was my most exhaustive video to date, and I had so much fun coming up with every portion of it. There were so many more things I could have added for almost all of the shows I mentioned, but I didn't want a few shows to steamroll the spotlight. The first 100 people have joined the Brainwaves channel, and here's to many more in the future. I hope you all enjoyed my little dive into my love for anime, and feel free to let me know what things you also loved on this list. And give me some of your own most loved shows, characters, or even concepts in anime. And never stop talking about what you love, everyone. And with that said, I look forward to seeing you there, fellow anime lovers. Bye bye for now.